Welcome back to our channel, where we explore intriguing topics and dive into the depths of political systems. In today's video, we'll be discussing a subject that has been a defining feature of American politics for centuries: the two-party dominant system. Why does the United States adopt this unique system? Let's find out. Political parties play an important role in American politics. To understand American party system first, let's take a look at party systems in the world. Multi-party systems are prevalent in many democracies around the world. In these systems, multiple political parties compete for seats in the legislature, and no single party typically holds a majority. This diversity of parties allows for a wide range of voices and perspectives to be represented in the political process. Countries like Germany, India, and Italy are known for their multi-party systems. In such systems, coalitions and alliances among parties are often formed to establish majority governments or to negotiate policy agreements. Two-party systems are characterized by the dominance of two major parties that compete for power. While other parties may exist, they typically face significant barriers to achieving substantial electoral success. Two-party systems are found in countries like the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia. Dominant party systems exist in countries where a single political party consistently maintains a significant majority of seats in the legislature and a stronghold on power. These systems often arise due to historical, cultural, or institutional factors that contribute to the dominance of a particular party. Examples of dominant party systems can be seen in countries Singapore, Mexico, prior to recent political shifts, and Japan, dominated by the Liberal Democratic Party. While opposition parties may exist and compete, the dominant party often enjoys a significant advantage in resources, media access, and electoral support. One-party systems are characterized by the presence of a single political party that monopolizes power and suppresses opposition. These systems often exist in authoritarian or totalitarian regimes, where the ruling party controls all aspects of governance and restricts political freedoms. Countries like North Korea, Vietnam, Laos, China, with the Communist Party, and Cuba are examples of one-party systems. In such systems, opposition parties are either non-existent or severely limited, and political power is concentrated within the ruling party. In American politics, two political parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, have consistently dominated the election process. They are represented by an elephant and a donkey. Since 1853, every presidential candidate that came out victorious has belonged to one of these parties, therefore creating a two-party dominant system. Several factors have contributed to the formation of the two-party dominant systems in the United States. 1. Historical origins and political culture. 2. Winner-takes-all electoral system. 3. The active proportional representation system. And 4. Structure barriers. Let's take a look at them one by one. From the early days of the Republic, political factions emerged, driven by differing ideologies and interests. The Federalists, led by Alexander Hamilton, and the Democratic Republicans, led by Thomas Jefferson, were the nation's first prominent parties. In the early 19th century, the Democratic-Republican Party split, giving rise to the Democratic Party, which embraced agrarian interests and supported limited government, and the National Republican Party, which later transformed into the Whig Party. These two parties competed for power, with the Democrats emerging as a dominant force, solidifying the foundation of the two-party system. The issue of slavery and the subsequent Civil War had a significant impact on the development of the two-party system. The Democratic Party, divided along regional lines, struggled to maintain unity as the question of slavery intensified. The Republican Party formed in the 1850s, united anti-slavery forces, and gained prominence as the party of Abraham Lincoln, playing a pivotal role in the Union's victory in the Civil War. Following the Civil War, the Republican Party became associated with the cause of Reconstruction and the promotion of civil rights for formerly enslaved individuals. The Democratic Party, particularly in the South, resisted these efforts, leading to a realignment of political loyalties in the region and shaping the partisan landscape for decades to come. The early 20th century saw significant political and social reforms with the emergence of progressive movements. The Republican Party, under President Theodore Roosevelt, embraced progressive ideals, while the Democratic Party, particularly during Franklin D. Roosevelt's presidency, championed the New Deal policies aimed at addressing the Great Depression. These eras solidified the ideological positions of the two major parties and shaped their respective bases of support. The Cold War era and the struggle for civil rights in the mid-20th century further defined the two-party system. The Republican Party became associated with anti-communism and conservative values, while the Democratic Party saw a realignment, becoming more supportive of civil rights and social welfare programs. These shifts shaped the partisan identities that persist to this day. The American political culture has embraced the two-party system as a norm and tradition. Many citizens identify strongly with either the Democratic or Republican Party, and party affiliation has become deeply ingrained in personal and collective political identities. This cultural attachment further strengthens the two-party paradigm. Majority of Americans embrace moderation rather than extremism, because they live in a middle-class society. With the winner-takes-all electoral system, which we will explain later, a political party that intends to win an election, it must appeal to the broadest segment of the people. Additionally, it must choose relatively conservative or liberal political candidates. By endorsing an extreme candidate, the party will simply not have a chance to win. The winner-takes-all electoral system used in most American elections, also known as the plurality or first-past-the-post system, contributes to the two-party dominance. In this system, the candidate who receives the most votes, even if not an outright majority, wins the entire electoral district. This setup discourages the rise of smaller parties and favors the concentration of support around the two major parties. Duverger's law. Duverger's law, a political science principle, suggests that the first-past-the-post electoral system, combined with single-member districts, tends to favor the emergence of two major parties. The logic behind this is that smaller parties have a harder time winning seats due to vote splitting. As a result, voters tend to strategically align themselves with the two dominant parties to ensure their preferred candidate has a chance to win. A study shows some evidence of the Duvergerian psychological effect acting on voters during campaign periods. Structural barriers. The existing party duopoly creates significant structural barriers for new parties to enter the political arena. The Democratic and Republican parties have established extensive resources, networks, and institutional advantages over time in the states where they control the legislative and executive branches. The state laws on election campaign, voter registration, and voting procedures are unfavorable to small political parties, and in many cases, are even unfavorable to the opposition party. The high costs and complexities associated with building a viable party organization and competing in elections make it challenging for new parties to gain traction. A two-party system, like any political system, has its own set of advantages and disadvantages. Here are some common pros and cons associated with a two-party system. Pros of a two-party system include: 1. Stability. A two-party system often leads to more stable governance compared to systems with multiple parties. With two major parties, there is a higher likelihood of one party winning a majority of seats or forming a coalition government, providing clearer leadership and policy direction. 2. Clarity of choice. A two-party system simplifies the political landscape for voters by presenting them with clear choices between two major parties. This can make it easier for voters to understand the differences in policy positions and ideologies, leading to more informed decision-making. 3. Bipartisanship and consensus building. A two-party system encourages parties to seek common ground and engage in bipartisan cooperation. In order to pass legislation and govern effectively, parties often need to find areas of agreement and compromise, fostering a culture of consensus building and cooperation. 4. Efficient decision-making. With two major parties, decision-making processes can be more streamlined and efficient. Parties can more effectively coordinate their members and implement their policy agendas without being hindered by extensive negotiations and conflicting demands from multiple parties. Cons of a two-party system include: 1. Limited representation. A two-party system may limit the diversity of political representation. Smaller parties or independent candidates often struggle to gain significant representation or have their voices heard, which can result in underrepresentation of certain perspectives and viewpoints. 2. Lack of choice. Some critics argue that a two-party system limits the range of choices available to voters. This can lead to voter frustration and a sense of disenfranchisement. 3. Polarization. Two-party systems can sometimes foster polarization and cause gridlock in decision-making. This can lead to a more confrontational political climate, where compromise and cooperation between parties become more challenging to achieve. 4. Resistance to change. In a two-party system, the dominance of the major parties, coupled with existing institutional and cultural frameworks, can limit opportunities for political innovation and change. It is important to note that the two-party dominance does not mean that other parties are non-existent in the United States. While smaller parties do exist and occasionally have local or regional influence, they face significant hurdles in achieving broader national recognition and representation. Ultimately, breaking the dominance of the two major parties would require substantial shifts in electoral systems, cultural attitudes, and political structures. Movements advocating for electoral reforms, such as ranked choice voting or proportional representation, aim to create more opportunities for third parties to thrive and challenge the existing two-party dominance. Here is a brief summary of what we have learned in this video. First, its historical origins can be traced back to the division between the Federalist Party and the Democratic-Republican Party. The American political culture has embraced the two-party system as a norm and tradition. The winner-takes-all electoral system used in American elections also plays a significant role, as it favors the emergence of two major parties and discourages smaller parties. Duverger's psychological effect reinforces this tendency. Structural barriers, such as the existing resources and networks of the Democratic and Republican parties, make it difficult for new parties to gain traction. These factors collectively contribute to the prevalence and endurance of the two-party system in the United States. Regenerate Response Duverger's law further reinforces this tendency, stating that the electoral system combined with single-member districts favors a two-party system. Structural barriers, such as the existing resources and networks of the Democratic and Republican parties, make it difficult for new parties to gain traction. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Your support is what keeps us going.